At my son's wedding, my daughter-in-law introduced me to her wealthy father. "This old man is the poor beggar of the family. Don't pay attention." My son just laughed, until the father said during the toast, "I want to thank my billionaire friend for sponsoring this wedding. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from." My name is Anthony, and I'm 56 years old. I never thought I'd be standing at my own son's wedding, feeling like an unwelcome stranger. But here I am. The pristine white tent stretches across the manicured lawn of the country club, filled with 200 guests who all seem to belong here more than I do. Crystal chandeliers catch the afternoon light, casting rainbows across tables draped in ivory silk. Everything screams money, class, sophistication, everything I apparently lack, according to my new daughter-in-law. I adjust my tie nervously. It's not expensive, but it's clean and pressed. My suit came from a department store, not a tailor, but it fits well enough. I thought I looked presentable when I left my small apartment this morning. Now, surrounded by designer gowns and custom tuxedos, I feel like a fraud. Brian, my son, stands at the altar looking every inch the successful attorney he's become. At 28, he's already made partner at a prestigious firm downtown. His bride, Claire, glides down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than I make in 6 months. She's beautiful, I'll give her that. Blonde hair swept into an elaborate updo, makeup applied by professionals, a smile that belongs on magazine covers. The ceremony itself is flawless. I watch from the back row, where I was seated without explanation. Family of the groom should sit closer, but no one seemed concerned about that detail when they handed me my place card. I clap when they kiss. I stand when everyone else stands. I play my part, but it's at the reception where everything falls apart. I'm standing near the bar, nursing a glass of water, because even the cheapest wine here costs more than I usually spend on groceries in a week, when Claire approaches with her father, William Harrison III. I've heard about him, of course. Real estate mogul, owns half the commercial buildings in downtown Chicago. The kind of man who writes checks with more zeros than I see in a year. "Daddy, I want you to meet someone," Claire says, her voice saccharine sweet. She loops her arm through her father's, then gestures toward me with the kind of dismissive wave you'd use to shoo away a persistent fly. "This old man is the poor beggar of the family. Don't pay him any attention." The words hit me like a physical blow. I feel the blood drain from my face as several nearby guests turn to stare. A woman in pearls actually gasps. Another guest, a man in an expensive suit, looks at me with something between pity and disgust. But what breaks my heart isn't Claire's cruelty. It's Brian's reaction. He laughs. My son, the boy I raised alone after his mother died, the child I worked 3 jobs to support, the young man whose college tuition I paid with money I didn't have, stands there and laughs at his wife's humiliation of his father. "Claire, you're terrible," he says, but his tone is fond, amused. He wraps an arm around her waist, pulling her close. "Dad doesn't mind, do you, Dad? You know she's just playing around. As if the devastation crushing my chest is just part of some elaborate joke I should be grateful to participate in. William Harrison III extends his hand to me anyway, though I can see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Anthony, isn't it? Brian's told me so much about you." I shake his hand, my voice coming out rougher than intended. "All good things, I hope." Claire snorts delicately. "Daddy, Anthony works at a hardware store. He's been there for, what, Dad, 20 years? Same position, same little apartment. Some people just aren't ambitious." Each word is a knife twist. I've been at Morrison's Hardware for 18 years, not 20, and I happen to love my job. I like helping people fix things, whether it's a leaky faucet or a broken garden gate. There's satisfaction in honest work, in using your hands to make something whole again. But standing here, watching my son's face flush with embarrassment, I realize that to him, my life's work is nothing but a source of shame. "Dad's simple," Brian adds, his voice tight with forced cheerfulness. "He's never really understood the finer things in life. Different generations, you know. Simple." The word echoes in my head as I watch William Harrison III nod sympathetically, as if my son has just explained some tragic family burden he's forced to carry. I think about the nights I stayed up helping Brian with homework while exhaustion pulled at my eyelids. I think about the birthday parties I threw in our cramped apartment, using every creative trick I knew to make them feel special despite our tight budget. I think about the conversations we had about dreams and goals, where I told him he could be anything he wanted to be, do anything he set his mind to. Apparently, what he set his mind to was being ashamed of me. "Excuse me," I manage, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need some air." I turn and walk away before anyone can respond. Behind me, I hear Claire's tinkling laugh, the sound like breaking glass. Poor thing probably needs a moment to recover. This is all a bit overwhelming for someone like him, someone like him, someone like me. I find myself outside the tent, standing beside a perfectly manicured garden where roses bloom in neat, expensive rows. The late afternoon sun warms my face, but I feel cold inside, hollow. I pull out my phone and scroll to Brian's contact, my thumb hovering over the call button. What would I say? What could I possibly say that would make him understand how much his laughter just destroyed me? A text comes through, making me jump. It's from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who's been looking after my small apartment building's garden while I'm away. "Hope the wedding is beautiful, Anthony. Your son is lucky to have such a devoted father." I stare at the words, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Mrs. Chen sees something in me that my own son apparently doesn't. She sees the man who brings her groceries when her arthritis flares up, who fixes her leaky sink without charging a dime, who listens patiently to stories about her grandchildren in Taiwan. But my own family sees only failure. I'm about to put my phone away when another message appears, this one from an unknown number. "Mr. Graves, this is Patricia from Harrison Enterprises. Mr. Harrison asked me to reach out regarding tonight's arrangements. Everything is confirmed as discussed." I frown at the message. Harrison Enterprises. That's William Harrison III's company. But why would they be contacting me about arrangements? I don't have any business with them, don't even know what arrangements they're talking about. I type back quickly, "I think you have the wrong number." The response comes immediately. "My apologies, Mr. Graves. Mr. Harrison wanted to ensure your comfort during the reception toasts. Shall we proceed as planned?" My comfort during the toasts? What could that possibly mean? Before I can respond, I hear the sound system crackling to life inside the tent. The band has stopped playing, and William Harrison III's voice booms across the reception. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment, I'd like to say a few words about this beautiful celebration. I should go back inside. Whatever's happening, I should be there for Brian's sake, even if he doesn't want me there." I straighten my shoulders and walk back toward the tent, slipping in through a side entrance. William stands at the front of the room, a microphone in his hand, his face beaming with satisfaction. Claire sits at the head table, radiant in her wedding dress, Brian beside her looking proud and content. "Today marks not just the union of two young people," William continues, "but the joining of two families. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special." His eyes scan the crowd before landing on me, standing awkwardly near the back. Something in his expression shifts, and for a moment, I think I see respect there. Real respect, not the polite tolerance he showed earlier. "I want to thank my good friend Anthony Graves," he says, his voice carrying clearly across the tent. "Without his generosity, this celebration wouldn't have been possible." The world seems to tilt on its axis. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Heads turn toward me, expressions ranging from confusion to shock. At the head table, Claire's smile freezes on her face. Brian's fork clatters against his plate. But William isn't finished. "Anthony, my old friend, I think it's time these young people learned the truth about who you really are." The silence that follows William's words is deafening. I can feel every pair of eyes in the tent turning toward me, searching for something that makes sense. Claire's face has gone pale beneath her professional makeup. Brian looks like he's been slapped, his mouth opening and closing without sound. William Harrison III walks across the reception area, his steps measured and deliberate. When he reaches me, he extends his hand, not with the polite tolerance he showed earlier, but with genuine warmth. Anthony Graves, he announces to the crowd, CEO and founder of Pinnacle Industries, the man who single-handedly revolutionized warehouse logistics across the Midwest. A collective gasp ripples through the tent. I see Claire grip the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles go white. Brian's face cycles through emotions, confusion, disbelief, something that might be recognition. For those who don't know, William continues, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent reception, Pinnacle Industries was the company that saved Harrison Enterprises during the 2008 financial crisis. Anthony's innovative supply chain solutions didn't just keep my business afloat, they transformed it. We've been partners and friends for over 15 years. I feel the weight of hundreds of stares, but for the first time today, I don't feel small under them. William turns to me expectantly, and I realize he's waiting for me to speak. I take the microphone from him, my hands steadier than they've been all day. When I look out at the crowd, I see confusion, shock, and in some faces, dawning understanding. Thank you, William. My voice carries clearly across the tent now. You're right. It is time for the truth. I turn toward the head table, toward my son, who's staring at me like I'm a stranger. Brian, do you remember when you were 7 and you asked me why we didn't have a big house like your friend Tommy? Brian's throat works, but no words come out. I told you that happiness doesn't come from things. It comes from people who love you for who you are, not what you have. I wanted to teach you that lesson. I pause, letting the words settle. I thought I had. Claire suddenly finds her voice. This is impossible. You work at a hardware store. You live in that tiny apartment downtown. I work at Morrison's Hardware because I bought it 12 years ago, I say calmly. Jerry Morrison was about to lose everything to medical bills. I purchased it from him and kept him on as manager. As for the apartment, it's in a building I own. 6 units, actually. I live there because it reminds me where I came from. The crowd murmurs, pieces clicking together in their minds. I see guests pulling out phones, probably Googling Pinnacle Industries, discovering that Anthony Graves isn't the nobody they thought he was. But why? Brian's voice cracks like it did when he was 13. Why hide it from me? I look at my son, this man I raised alone after his mother died when he was 5. Because I wanted you to love me for being your father, not for being your bank account. I wanted you to respect hard work, honest living. I wanted you to understand that a man's worth isn't measured by his wallet. William nods approvingly. Anthony insisted on keeping our friendship quiet, especially around family. He wanted Brian to make his own way in the world. And he did, I continue, pride creeping into my voice despite everything. Brian earned his law degree, passed the bar, made partner at his firm, all on his own merit. I was proud of him. Was? Brian whispers. I look at him for a long moment, seeing the boy who used to climb into my lap when thunderstorms scared him, who brought me dandelions thinking they were the most beautiful flowers in the world. That boy is gone, replaced by someone I barely recognize. I was proud until today, I say quietly, when I realized that the values I tried to teach you never took root. Claire suddenly stands, her chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. Even if you have money, the way you dress, the way you act, it's embarrassing. People judge families by their weakest link. The words hang in the air like a slap. Several guests shift uncomfortably. Even William looks taken aback by her boldness. Weakest link, I repeat, tasting the bitterness of it. Is that what you see when you look at me, Claire? I see someone who doesn't belong in our world, she says, her mask finally slipping completely. Money or no money, you'll always be beneath us. The honesty is brutal, but I'm almost grateful for it. At least now, I know exactly where I stand. Brian doesn't defend me. He doesn't tell his wife she's gone too far. He just sits there, looking between us like he's watching a tennis match, instead of witnessing his wife destroy his father. Well, I say, my voice carrying a strange calm that surprises even me. At least now I know what this family really thinks of me. I hand the microphone back to William, who takes it with an expression of barely controlled anger. Ladies and gentlemen, he announces, I think we've all learned something important tonight about the true nature of character. As murmurs spread through the crowd, I make my way toward the exit. Behind me, I hear Claire's voice, sharp with panic now, rather than cruelty. "Wait, Anthony. We need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding." I don't turn around. The misunderstanding wasn't about my identity. The misunderstanding was thinking that blood relation meant anything when respect was absent. But as I reach the tense entrance, William's voice stops me. "Anthony, before you go, there's something else our young couple should know about the wedding they're currently enjoying." I turn back, meeting his eyes. He gives me a slight nod, a question in his expression. I consider for a moment, then nod back. It's time for the final truth. This entire reception, William announces to the stunned crowd, the venue, the flowers, the band, the catering, all of it was paid for by Anthony Graves. He wanted to give his son the wedding of his dreams, even knowing he wouldn't receive credit for it. The silence that follows is absolute. Even the catering staff stop what they're doing. Claire's face goes from pale to green. Brian's head drops into his hands. In fact, William continues, Anthony specifically requested that his contribution remain anonymous. He wanted Brian and Claire to believe it was all coming from the Harrison family, so they could enjoy their day without feeling obligated to him. I watch my son's shoulders shake, and for a moment, I think he might be crying. But when he looks up, I see something worse than tears. I see the dawning realization of what he's lost, what he's thrown away with his laughter and silence. The crowd begins to whisper among themselves, and I know that by tomorrow this story will be all over their social circles. The ungrateful son who mocked the father who paid for his wedding, the entitled bride who called her benefactor a beggar. I should feel satisfaction, but I don't. I feel empty. As I walk toward my car, I hear footsteps behind me. "Dad, wait!" Brian's voice is desperate now, cracking with panic. But I don't stop. Some words can't be unsaid. Some laughter can't be taken back. And some lessons come too late to matter. The valet brings my modest sedan around, and I tip him with the same $5 bill I would have used an hour ago when I was just Anthony the hardware store clerk, because that's still who I am, regardless of what my bank account says. As I drive away from the country club, I glance in my rearview mirror one last time. Brian is standing in the parking lot, still in his tuxedo, watching my car disappear. Claire is nowhere to be seen. 28 years of fatherhood, and it ends like this. Not with gratitude or love, but with a son realizing too late that the father he was ashamed of was the only one who ever truly cared about him. The drive back to my apartment gives me time to think, to remember. Tomorrow, I'll have decisions to make about my will, about my company, about the future I'd always planned to share with Brian. Tonight, though, I just want to go home to my simple apartment and remember when my son used to think I was the strongest man in the world, before he learned to be ashamed of strength that didn't come wrapped in designer labels. Back in my apartment, I sit in my worn leather chair and stare at the wall of photographs that tell the story of my life with Brian. There he is at 5, gap-toothed and grinning as he holds up his first fish. At 10, serious in his Little League uniform. At 18, proud in his graduation cap and gown. Each picture a reminder of the man I thought I was raising. The silence is broken by the persistent buzzing of my phone. 17 missed calls from Brian, 12 from Claire, even 3 from William Harrison. I turn it off and pour myself a glass of whiskey, the good stuff I keep hidden behind my everyday bottles. People would be surprised by a lot of things in this apartment if they looked closely. The vintage wine collection behind the generic bottles. The original artwork hanging where most people would notice it's signed by artists whose pieces sell for 6 figures. The handmade Persian rug that cost more than most people's cars. But I learned long ago to hide wealth like some people hide shame. The lesson started 23 years ago, just 3 years after Linda died. Brian was 8, and I was drowning in grief and single parenthood, working 16-hour days to keep Morrison's hardware afloat after Jerry's heart attack. That's when I developed the logistics system that would eventually become Pinnacle Industries. It was born from necessity. I needed to track inventory across multiple suppliers while managing costs and delivery times for the store. What started as a simple spreadsheet system evolved into software that could optimize supply chains for any business. Within 2 years, I had clients across the Midwest. Within 5, I was a millionaire. But I never told Brian. I remember the exact moment I decided to keep the money secret. Brian was 12, invited to a birthday party at the country club where his wedding was held today. When he came home, he was different, sullen, and angry. "Why don't we have a pool like Jeremy's family?" he demanded, throwing his backpack down with unusual force. "Why don't we live in a big house? Jeremy's dad says poor people don't try hard enough." I sat him down at our small kitchen table, the same one where we ate cereal every morning, where I helped him with homework every night. "Brian, what makes a person valuable, their house or their heart?" He rolled his eyes with the confidence of a 12-year-old who thought he understood everything. "Dad, nobody cares about your heart if you're a loser." The word stung, but I saw them for what they were. A boy trying to make sense of social hierarchies he was just beginning to understand. So I made a choice. I would let him see only the modest life I'd always lived, and I would teach him that happiness didn't come from things. I was naive enough to believe the lesson would take. Over the years, I watched Pinnacle Industries grow while living in the same apartment, shopping at the same stores, driving the same reliable sedan. I watched Brian excel in school, get accepted to Northwestern, graduate with honors. I paid his tuition through a scholarship fund I set up anonymously, told him it was based on merit, which it was. When he got engaged to Claire, I was cautiously optimistic. She was beautiful, educated, from a good family, but I started noticing things. The way she talked about the neighbors in Brian's building, dismissing them as nobodies. The way she flinched when Brian mentioned having dinner with me, like it was some embarrassing obligation. 3 months ago, I made a decision that breaks my heart, even thinking about it. I hired a private investigator. The report sits in my desk drawer now, pages of surveillance photos and recorded conversations that destroyed any remaining illusions I had about my son. Pictures of Brian and Claire at expensive restaurants, laughing as they mocked poor Anthony to their friends. Audio recordings of them discussing how to minimize contact with me after the wedding. But the worst part was the conversation recorded at their engagement party, the one I wasn't invited to. "Your dad's sweet in a pathetic way," I heard Claire say through the investigator's hidden microphone. "But Brian, you have to promise me we'll keep him at a distance." "I can't have my friends knowing my father-in-law is some nobody who works at a hardware store." "Don't worry," Brian replied, his voice casual, unconcerned. "Once we're married, we'll see him maybe twice a year. Christmas and his birthday maximum. I've already got it figured out." "What about when we have kids?" Claire pressed. "I don't want them exposed to that kind of smallness. It's not good for their development." "Kids won't be a problem," Brian laughed. "We'll tell them Grandpa Anthony is busy or sick or whatever. By the time they're old enough to ask real questions, he'll probably be in some state-run nursing home anyway." State-run nursing home. Like I was already dead to them, just a problem to be managed and eventually disposed of. That's when I knew I had to test them, had to know for certain what kind of people they really were. The wedding was the perfect opportunity. When Claire's father approached me about contributing to the costs, I saw my chance. I agreed to pay for everything, but insisted it remain secret. I wanted to see if my generosity would change their behavior toward me, even if they didn't know I was the source. It didn't. Even believing William Harrison was footing the bill for their dream wedding, they treated me like an embarrassment to be hidden. Claire's cruelty tonight wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated, performed for her father's benefit, designed to establish the family hierarchy with me firmly at the bottom. My phone lights up again. This time it's a text from Brian. "Dad, I'm coming over. We need to talk." I stare at the message for a long time. Part of me, the part that remembers teaching him to ride a bike and reading him bedtime stories, wants to let him in. Wants to believe that somewhere inside that cold, calculating man is the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. But I think about Claire's words today, about Brian's laughter, about the conversation recorded at their engagement party. I text back, "There's nothing to talk about." My phone rings immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then listen to the message. "Dad, please. I know I messed up tonight. I know you're hurt. But you have to understand I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. Claire was shocked too. We both were. Just let me explain. Explain what? That they're sorry they got caught? That they didn't mean for their true feelings to be exposed in front of 200 witnesses? Another text comes through, this one from Claire. Anthony, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I was nervous and said things I didn't mean. Please don't let this ruin Brian's relationship with his father. I almost laugh at the manipulation in those words. She's not concerned about Brian's relationship with me. She's concerned about Brian's relationship with my money. But there's another message, this one from William Harrison. Anthony, I hope you know that what happened tonight was necessary. Some people need to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. If you need anything at all, you know you can count on me. William understood. He saw what I saw, recognized the toxicity that had infected my son's character. Tonight wasn't just about humiliation or revenge. It was about truth, about forcing Brian and Claire to confront the reality of who they'd become. I walk to my desk and pull out a leather portfolio I've kept locked in the bottom drawer for months. Inside are documents that will change everything. My will, which currently leaves my entire estate to Brian. Stock certificates for Pinnacle Industries, deeds to properties scattered across the Midwest. Bank statements showing accounts with balances that would shock most people. Tomorrow, I'll call my attorney. Tonight, though, I pour another glass of whiskey and remember what it felt like when Brian was small enough to think I was the strongest man in the world. Outside my window, the city lights twinkle like stars. Somewhere out there, my son is probably pacing his expensive apartment, trying to figure out how to repair the damage his wife's cruelty caused. Somewhere out there, Claire is probably researching Pinnacle Industries, calculating exactly how much money she insulted tonight. But here, in my simple apartment surrounded by memories of better times, I'm finally at peace with a truth I've been avoiding for years. My son doesn't love me. Maybe he never did. Maybe the little boy who used to think I hung the moon was just performing the role children naturally play before they learn to judge their parents by society's standards. The realization should devastate me. Instead, it feels like liberation. For 23 years, I've hidden who I am, hoping to teach Brian values that he was incapable of learning. For 23 years, I've lived small so he could appreciate what really mattered. For 23 years, I've been a fool. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tonight, I mourn the son I thought I had and prepare to meet the one who actually exists. The knocking starts at 7 in the morning. Persistent, desperate, the kind of knocking that says the person on the other side won't be going away anytime soon. I've been awake since 5, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and the Sunday paper, reading an article about corporate philanthropy that mentions Pinnacle Industries. It's strange seeing my company's name in print, knowing that for years, Brian has lived in the same city without ever bothering to learn about the business landscape around him. The knocking intensifies. Dad, I know you're in there. Your car's in the lot. Please, just open the door. I finish my coffee slowly, deliberately, set the cup in the sink, fold the newspaper neatly. Only then do I walk to the door and open it. Brian looks terrible. His hair is disheveled, his clothes the same ones he wore to drive away from the reception last night. His eyes are red-rimmed and wild with something between panic and desperation. Dad, thank God. I've been standing out here for an hour. We need to talk. I step aside to let him in, noting how his gaze immediately sweeps the apartment, seeing it with new eyes. He's looking for signs of wealth now, evidence of the deception he never bothered to investigate before. Coffee? I offer, my voice neutral. No, Dad, listen to me. He grabs my arm and I'm surprised by how his hands are shaking. What happened last night, the things Claire said, they don't represent how I feel about you. I pour myself another cup, taking my time with the cream and sugar, don't they? No, I was in shock, complete shock. You understand what you did to me, to us, finding out like that in front of everyone? His voice rises, and I hear the anger beneath the desperation. Why would you humiliate us like that? I turn to face him fully. I humiliated you? Yes, making us look like fools, like we're these terrible people who don't appreciate our family. You made me look like an ungrateful son. The words hang between us, and I see the exact moment he realizes what he's just said. The implication that his concern isn't about hurting me, but about how he appeared to others. Are you an ungrateful son, Brian? He runs his hands through his hair, pacing my small living room like a caged animal. I don't know how to answer that. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same man I've always been. The one who raised you, who worked to provide for you, who loved you unconditionally. I pause, watching his face. The one you laughed at yesterday when your wife called me a beggar. She didn't mean it that way. How did she mean it then? Brian stops pacing, his jaw working as he searches for an answer that doesn't exist. He was nervous, meeting her father, wanting to make a good impression. Sometimes Claire says things when she's nervous. I nod slowly. And what's your excuse? My excuse for what? For laughing, for not defending me, for sitting there and letting your wife humiliate the man who raised you. His face flushes red. I told you I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. You knew exactly what to say, Brian. You called me simple. You said I don't understand the finer things in life. You agreed with every cruel word that came out of her mouth. Because I thought you were just a hardware store clerk. The words explode out of him. I thought you were exactly what you appeared to be. There it is, the truth he's been dancing around. And what did I appear to be to you, son? Brian's mouth opens and closes several times before he finds his voice. Someone who never amounted to much. Someone who was content with a small life. Someone who didn't have ambition or drive. Each word is a nail in the coffin of our relationship. Someone you were ashamed of. I wasn't ashamed. You were embarrassed to have me at your wedding. You seated me in the back row. You never introduced me to your friends. You never asked about my life, my work, my dreams. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate calm. Brian, when was the last time you asked me how I was doing? Really asked, not just the polite greeting before you got to what you needed from me. The silence stretches between us. He can't answer because we both know the truth. Our relationship has been one-sided for years, with me giving and him taking without ever questioning where the resources came from. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. His voice cracks, and for a moment I see the little boy I used to comfort when he had nightmares. I know I haven't been a good son. I know I've taken you for granted, but please, don't let this destroy our family. Our family was destroyed long before last night, I say quietly. Last night just made it visible. That's not true. We can fix this. Claire and I, we want to fix this. I walk to my desk and pull out the portfolio I'd prepared last night. Where is Claire, by the way? Brian's face darkens. She's at home. She's upset about how everything happened. Upset that she got caught showing her true nature? Or upset that she insulted someone with money? Don't say that. It's a fair question. I open the portfolio and pull out a printed page. This is a transcript of a conversation you and Claire had 3 months ago at your engagement party. Brian's face goes pale. What are you talking about? I begin reading in a steady, emotionless voice. Quote, your dad's sweet in a pathetic way, but Brian, you have to promise me we'll keep him at a distance. I can't have my friends knowing my father-in-law is some nobody who works at a hardware store. End quote. Where did you get that? Quote, don't worry. Once we're married, we'll see him maybe twice a year. Christmas and his birthday maximum. I've already got it figured out. End quote. I look up at Brian, who's gone from pale to green. That's you speaking, son. Dad, you had us followed? You hired someone to spy on us? I hired someone to tell me the truth since you weren't capable of it. Brian sinks into my old armchair, his head in his hands. This is insane. You've lost your mind. I continue reading. Quote, what about when we have kids? I don't want them exposed to that kind of smallness. That's Claire. And your response, kids won't be a problem. We'll tell them Grandpa Anthony is busy or sick or whatever. By the time they're old enough to ask real questions, he'll probably be in some state-run nursing home anyway. The words hit him like physical blows. He flinches with each quote, his breathing becoming shallow and rapid. A state-run nursing home, Brian. That's where you saw my future. That's what you were planning for the man who sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? I don't know. He stands up abruptly, anger replacing his earlier desperation. I don't know, okay? Maybe I did say those things. Maybe Claire and I did talk about limiting contact with you. But can you blame us? Look at this place, Dad. Look at how you live. Look at how you dress. We're trying to build a life, a reputation, a future. Having a father-in-law who works retail doesn't exactly fit the image we're going for. There it is. Finally, the complete truth. The image you're going for, I repeat slowly. Yes, Claire's father is William Harrison. Do you know what that means? The connections, the opportunities, the doors that open when people know you're connected to that family? I'm not going to apologize for wanting better, and I was holding you back from better. You weren't holding me back, you were just not helping, not adding value to our social circle. I nod, processing this brutal honesty. Well, then you'll be happy to know that problem is solved. Brian frowns. What do you mean? I pull out another document from the portfolio. This is my will, Brian. As of yesterday morning, it left everything to you. My company, my properties, my investments. All of it. His eyes widen, and I see calculation flickering behind the shock. Dad, you don't have to do anything drastic. You're right, I don't have to do anything drastic. I tear the will in half. I already did it. What are you doing? I'm giving you exactly what you wanted, a life without the embarrassment of poor Anthony. I walk to my desk and pull out a fresh document. This is a new will. I had my attorney draw it up this morning. Brian's voice is barely a whisper. What does it say? It leaves you enough money to pay off your law school loans and put a down payment on a modest house. The rest goes to various charities. The rest? Dad, how much money are we talking about? I hand him a financial statement. His eyes scan the numbers, growing wider with each line item. This can't be right. These numbers, they're impossible. Pinnacle Industries is worth roughly $87 million. I own it outright. The real estate portfolio is worth another $42 million. Various investments and liquid assets bring the total to approximately $150 million. Brian stares at the paper like it might burst into flames. $150 million? Give or take a few million depending on market fluctuations. And you're leaving me what? $200,000. Enough to get you started on an independent life, which is apparently what you wanted anyway. The paper flutters from his hands to the floor. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your son. I'm your only family. Family isn't about blood, Brian. It's about love, respect, and loyalty. Tell me, which of those have you shown me? His face crumples, and for a moment I think he might actually understand. But then his expression hardens, and I see something ugly surface in his features. So this is it? You're going to destroy my future because of one bad day? One bad day? I let out a bitter laugh. Brian, this wasn't one bad day. This was who you really are, finally revealed. He stands up, his jaw set with determination. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, I'll contest the will. I'll prove you're mentally incompetent. No judge will believe you're capable of making rational decisions after hiding this kind of deception for years. And there he is, the real Brian. Not the apologetic son seeking forgiveness, but the calculating attorney looking for legal angles to exploit. You're welcome to try, I say calmly. I'm sure William Harrison will be happy to testify about my mental competence, along with a dozen other business leaders who've worked with me for years. Brian's confidence wavers, but he pushes forward. What about Claire? She'll be devastated. This will ruin her life too. Claire's life will be exactly what she makes of it, without my money to complicate things. You're being vindictive and cruel. I look at my son, this stranger wearing the face of the little boy I used to love unconditionally, and feel something inside me finally break free. No, Brian, I'm being honest. Finally, completely honest. And honesty, it turns out, is something this family can't handle. Brian leaves my apartment with threats instead of apologies. The door slams behind him with enough force to rattle the picture frames on my wall, each one holding memories of a son who apparently never existed the way I thought he did. I spend the rest of Sunday in careful deliberation, making phone calls that will reshape the rest of my life. First, my attorney, Margaret Chen, who's handled my legal affairs for 15 years. Anthony, are you certain about this? Margaret's voice carries the weight of someone who's seen too many family fortunes destroyed by emotion. This is a substantial estate we're talking about. Perhaps you should take some time before making such a dramatic change. I've had 23 years to think about it, Margaret. Draw up the papers. What about a trust fund? Something that would provide for Brian's children if he has any? I think about Claire's recorded words about not wanting her children exposed to my smallness. No trust fund. Brian made his choices. Let him live with them. The second call is to William Harrison, who answers on the first ring despite it being Sunday evening. Anthony, how are you holding up? I'm fine, William. Better than fine, actually, but I have a favor to ask. Anything. I'd like to increase my charitable giving substantially. Can you recommend some worthy causes that could use immediate funding? There's a pause before William responds, and I can hear the smile in his voice. I think that's an excellent idea. There's a scholarship fund for underprivileged kids that could use a major donor, and a food bank that's been struggling with rising demand. Set up meetings with their directors this week, if possible. Anthony, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have any regrets about last night? I consider the question carefully. My only regret is that it took so long for the truth to come out. Monday morning arrives gray and drizzly, matching the mood I imagine hangs over a certain newlywed couple's apartment. I'm in my office at Pinnacle Industries by 7, reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant, Sarah, knocks on my door. Mr. Graves, there's a woman here to see you. She says she's your daughter-in-law. I look up from my spreadsheets, unsurprised but weary. Send her in. Claire enters my office like she's walking onto a stage, every movement calculated for maximum effect. She's dressed in a cream-colored suit that probably costs more than most people make in a month. Her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. The transformation from Saturday night's panicked bride to this polished performance is remarkable. Anthony, she says, her voice honey-sweet with manufactured warmth, I hope you don't mind me dropping by unannounced. What can I do for you, Claire? She settles into the chair across from my desk, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. I wanted to apologize, properly apologize without Brian here to complicate things. I lean back in my chair, waiting. What I said at the reception was inexcusable, she continues, her eyes bright with what might be tears if I didn't know better. I was nervous, overwhelmed by the whole day, and I said things that don't represent who I really am. And who are you really, Claire? I'm someone who loves your son deeply and wants to be part of his family. All of his family, including you. The performance is impressive. I'll give her that. If I hadn't heard the recordings, hadn't seen the calculation behind her cruelty on Saturday night, I might almost believe her. That's very touching, I say. What does Brian think about this apology? Her composure slips slightly. Brian doesn't know I'm here. He's upset about how things ended yesterday. He thinks you're being unreasonable. Unreasonable how? Claire leans forward, and I catch a glimpse of steel beneath the silk. Anthony, we're family now. Families fight. They say things they don't mean, but they work through it. They don't cut each other off over hurt feelings. Is that what you think this is? Hurt feelings? I think this is a misunderstanding that's gotten out of control. She reaches into her purse and pulls out a small wrapped box. I brought you something, a peace offering. I don't reach for the box. What is it? A watch, a Rolex. I thought, now that we know about your success, you might want something that reflects your achievements. The irony is almost laughable. After years of mocking my appearance, my modest lifestyle, my lack of expensive accessories, she's now trying to buy my forgiveness with the very symbols of wealth she claimed I lacked. That's very thoughtful, I say, still not touching the box. How much did it cost? That's not important. What's important is the gesture. Everything has a price, Claire. What's the price of this gesture? Her mask slips a little further. I don't understand. Sure you do. You're a smart woman. You've done your research since Saturday night. You know exactly how much money we're talking about. So what's the price? What do you want in exchange for this expensive peace offering? Claire sets the box on my desk with more force than necessary. I want my husband to have a relationship with his father. I want our future children to have a grandfather. I want us to be a family. Your future children, I repeat. The ones you don't want exposed to my smallness? Her face goes pale. You recorded us. I didn't have to record you, Claire. You said it loud enough for anyone to hear. She stands up abruptly, her composure finally cracking completely. Fine. Yes, I said those things, but that was before I knew who you really were. And who am I really? You're a successful businessman. You're wealthy. You're someone who could open doors for Brian, for our family. There it is, stripped of all pretense. So now I'm acceptable? Now you're valuable. The honesty is brutal and perfect. At least she's finally telling the truth. Claire, let me ask you something. If I were still just Anthony who works at the hardware store, would you be here right now? She hesitates just long enough to answer the question. I thought not. I stand up and walk to my office door, opening it. I think we're done here. Anthony, wait. You're making a mistake. The mistake was thinking you and Brian were capable of loving someone for who they are instead of what they have. Her eyes flash with anger, the sweet mask finally dropping completely. You think you're teaching us some kind of lesson? You think this is noble? I think this is honest. It's vindictive. It's petty. And it's going to destroy your relationship with your son forever. My relationship with my son was destroyed long before Saturday night. Saturday night just made it visible. Claire grabs the Rolex box from my desk, clutching it like a weapon. You'll regret this. Both of you will regret this when Brian and I have children and you're not part of their lives. Claire, you've made it very clear that you never intended for me to be part of their lives anyway. You're not taking anything away from me that you weren't already planning to withhold. She opens her mouth to argue, then seems to realize the truth of what I've said. Instead, she storms toward the door, pausing only to deliver her final shot. You know what the real tragedy is, Anthony? Brian actually loved you. Despite everything, he loved you. But you're so bitter and twisted that you can't see it. If that's what love looks like, I say quietly, then I'm better off without it. The door slams behind her with enough force to rattle my office windows. I walk back to my desk and sit down, staring at the space where the Rolex box had been. Sarah appears in the doorway moments later, her face concerned. Mr. Graves, is everything all right? Everything's fine, Sarah. Actually, everything's better than it's been in years. Should I hold your calls? No, I'm expecting some important ones today. I pull out my phone and scroll to Margaret Chen's number. I need to make sure some legal documents are filed properly. That afternoon, I meet with the director of the Children's Education Foundation, a scholarship fund that helps kids from low-income families attend college. Maria Santos is a small woman with fierce eyes and calloused hands that speak of a life spent fighting for other people's children. Mr. Graves, when Mr. Harrison told me you were interested in making a substantial donation, I have to admit I was skeptical. We get a lot of promises from wealthy individuals who want the tax write-off without the commitment. What kind of commitment are you looking for? Long-term partnership. Not just money, but involvement. These kids need mentors, people who understand that success isn't just about writing checks. I think about Brian, about all the checks I wrote for his education while never teaching him the values that should have come with them. I'm interested in funding full scholarships for 50 students, I say, 4-year programs, all expenses paid. Maria's eyes widen. 50 students? Mr. Graves, that's a multi-million-dollar commitment. I'm aware of the cost. Can I ask what's motivating this level of generosity? I look out her office window at the downtown skyline, at the city where my son practices law and my daughter-in-law shops for expensive peace offerings. I'm motivated by the hope that someone else's children will learn the values mine never did. Maria nods slowly. I think we can work together, Mr. Graves. That evening, I'm back in my apartment, heating up leftover Chinese food and watching the news when my phone rings. It's Brian. Dad, Claire told me about your meeting today. Did she? She said you threw her out of your office. She left on her own. Dad, this has gone far enough. We need to sit down like adults and work this out. I'm listening, not over the phone, in person. Tomorrow night, dinner at our place. Claire's cooking. I almost laugh at the absurdity of it. After everything that's been said, after all the truth that's been revealed, they still think this can be solved with a home-cooked meal and family theater. I don't think that's a good idea, Brian. Why not? We're family. Families work things out. Are we family, Brian? Because from where I sit, it looks like we're strangers who happen to share DNA. That's not fair. Fair would have been you defending me when your wife called me a beggar. Fair would have been you showing some interest in my life over the past 5 years. Fair would have been you treating me with basic respect instead of embarrassment. Silence stretches between us, filled with 28 years of missed opportunities and misplaced priorities. Dad, I'm sorry. I know I haven't been the son you deserved, but please, give me a chance to make it right. For a moment, I hear echoes of the little boy who used to promise to be good if I just read him one more bedtime story. But that little boy is gone, replaced by a man who sees relationships as transactions and love as conditional. Brian, the chance to make it right was every day for the past 23 years. You chose not to take it. So what? You're just writing me off? Your only child? I'm setting you free to live the life you want, the one without the embarrassment of poor Anthony holding you back. I never said you were holding me back. You didn't have to say it. You showed it every time you were ashamed to introduce me to your friends, every time you made excuses for my modest lifestyle, every time you treated me like a burden instead of a blessing. The line goes quiet except for the sound of Brian's breathing, heavy and uneven. Dad, if you do this, if you cut me out of your life and your will, there is no coming back from it. I know. You'll die alone. The words are meant to hurt, but they don't. They actually bring me peace. Brian, I've been alone for years. I just didn't realize it until Saturday night. I hang up before he can respond, then turn off my phone and sit in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by photographs of a son who never really existed and memories of a love that was apparently one-sided. For the first time in decades, I feel completely free. 2 years have passed since Brian's wedding, and I'm sitting in the garden of my new home, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of gold and pink. I moved to Colorado 18 months ago, to a small town where nobody knows about Pinnacle Industries or Anthony Graves the millionaire. Here, I'm just Tony, the guy who volunteers at the local food bank and helps kids with their homework at the community center. My phone sits silent on the patio table beside my coffee. No desperate calls from Brian, no manipulation attempts from Claire. The legal battle they threatened never materialized. Margaret Chen tells me they consulted several attorneys who all delivered the same message. A mentally competent man has the right to distribute his wealth as he sees fit. And my business relationships with people like William Harrison proved my competence beyond any legal challenge. The silence wasn't immediate. For months after I changed my will, they tried everything. Brian showed up at my old apartment building so many times that Mrs. Chen, my former neighbor, finally called the police. Claire attempted to contact my business partners, trying to convince them I was having some kind of breakdown. She even reached out to local newspapers, hoping to spin a story about a vindictive father destroying his son's future. None of it worked. My business associates had watched Brian ignore me for years at company events I occasionally attended. William Harrison made it clear to anyone who asked that he'd witnessed firsthand the disrespect I'd endured. The newspapers weren't interested in a story about a wealthy man choosing to give his money to charity instead of ungrateful children. Eventually, they stopped trying. The last contact I had with Brian was a letter that arrived 6 months ago, written on his law firm's letterhead, formal and cold. He informed me that he and Claire were expecting their first child, a daughter they planned to name Linda after my deceased wife. The letter suggested this might be an opportunity for reconciliation, a chance for me to be a grandfather. I read the letter twice, then filed it away without responding. They'd made their position clear about exposing children to my smallness. I wasn't about to force my way into a grandchild's life where I wasn't genuinely wanted. My days now are filled with purpose that has nothing to do with corporate profits or family obligations. Every morning I walk to Morrison's Hardware, which I still own but now run very differently. Jerry Morrison passed away last year, leaving the store to his nephew Marcus, a young man who reminds me of what I'd hoped Brian might become. Marcus treats every customer with respect, whether they're buying a single screw or planning a complete home renovation. 3 afternoons a week, I tutor kids at the community center. Most come from single-parent homes where money is tight and dreams feel impossible. I see myself in some of them, remember what it felt like to want better for your children and work yourself to exhaustion trying to provide it. Last month, I helped a 17-year-old named Miguel apply for college scholarships. His mother works 2 jobs to support 3 kids, and Miguel has been the man of the house since his father left when he was 12. When he got accepted to the state university with a full scholarship from the Children's Education Foundation, the scholarship fund I've been supporting, his mother cried in my office. "Mr. Tony," she said through her tears, "you don't know what this means for our family." But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant to sacrifice everything for a child's future, to believe that education and opportunity would translate into values and character. The difference is that Miguel's mother raised a son who appreciates what she's given him. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm now helping other people's children achieve their dreams, while my own son struggles with the consequences of his choices. Through William Harrison, who's become a genuine friend rather than just a business associate, I occasionally hear updates about Brian and Claire's situation. The law firm where Brian worked as a partner was more image-conscious than he'd realized. When word spread about the wedding incident and the subsequent family breakdown, his colleagues began questioning his character and judgment. Clients started requesting other attorneys. Within a year, Brian was asked to leave the partnership. He found work at a smaller firm for significantly less money. Claire, meanwhile, discovered that being married to a disgraced lawyer from a family with no money wasn't nearly as appealing as she'd thought. The expensive lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to during their engagement disappeared almost overnight. According to William, they've moved to a modest apartment in a less fashionable part of the city. Claire took a job at a marketing company, her first real employment in years. They're living paycheck to paycheck, learning what financial stress feels like for the first time in their privileged lives. I should feel satisfaction hearing about their struggles, but I don't. I feel sadness for the grandchild I'll never know, for the family that might have been if different choices had been made. But I don't feel regret. This morning brings an unexpected visitor. I'm weeding my vegetable garden when a car pulls into my driveway. A young woman gets out, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair and Brian's eyes. For a moment, I think it might be someone from his law firm, but then she speaks. "Are you Anthony Graves?" "I am." "Can I help you?" She hesitates, clutching a small purse against her chest like armor. "My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm a social worker here in town. I wanted to thank you for what you've done for the Martinez family." I recognize the name. Miguel Martinez, the boy I helped with his scholarship applications. "How is Miguel doing?" "He's thriving at university. Pre-med track, dean's list both semesters. But that's not why I'm here." She pauses, looking uncertain. "Mr. Graves, Miguel told me about your mentoring, about how you helped him navigate the application process. He said you understood what it was like to work hard for your children's future." I nod, waiting. I have a situation. A 14-year-old boy named David, whose father abandoned the family last year. His mother is working 3 jobs to keep them afloat, but David is struggling in school. He's angry, acting out, headed down a path that won't end well. What does this have to do with me? Miguel thought you might be willing to talk to him. David doesn't trust adults easily, especially men, but Miguel said you have a way of connecting with kids who've been let down by the adults in their lives. I look at this young woman, this stranger who's driven to my house because a boy I'd helped thought I might be able to help another boy. It occurs to me that this is what family actually looks like, people choosing to care for each other, to support each other, not because of blood or obligation, but because of genuine connection and shared values. "When would you like me to meet David?" Relief floods Sarah's face. "Really? You'll do it?" "I'll try. No promises, but I'll try." She gives me the details, and we arrange to meet David at the community center next week. After she leaves, I sit back down in my garden with my coffee, now cold, but still comforting. My phone buzzes with a text from William Harrison. "Anthony, Claire contacted my office today, asking if I knew how to reach you. She says it's urgent, something about the baby. Should I give her your number?" I stare at the message for a long time. Part of me, the part that remembers teaching Brian to ride a bicycle and reading him bedtime stories, wants to say yes. Wants to know about my granddaughter, wants to be part of her life. But I remember Claire's words about not wanting her children exposed to my smallness. I remember Brian's laughter when she called me a beggar. I remember the years of being treated like An embarrassing obligation rather than a beloved father. I type back, "No, if it's truly urgent, they can contact me through Margaret Chen." William's response comes quickly. "Understood. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay. I'm free." And it's true. For the first time in decades, I'm not carrying the weight of someone else's expectations, not trying to prove my worth to people who've already decided I have none. I'm not waiting for phone calls that never come or hoping for invitations that arrive only when something is needed. That evening, I'm preparing dinner when there's a knock at my door. I open it to find Mrs. Rodriguez from next door, holding a casserole dish and wearing a worried expression. "Tony, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I made too much enchilada casserole again, and I thought you might like some." Mrs. Rodriguez is a widow whose husband died 2 years ago. She's been bringing me food and conversation ever since I moved to the neighborhood, treating me like the son she never had. "That's very kind of you, Elena. Would you like to stay for dinner?" "If you're sure I'm not intruding." "You're never intruding." We sit at my small kitchen table, sharing the casserole and talking about her grandson's baseball season, about the community garden project she's organizing, about anything and everything except the family I left behind. This is what I'd always hoped family dinners would feel like: comfortable, genuine, filled with people who want to be there. After Elena leaves, I walk out to my back porch and look up at the stars, clearer here in the mountains than they ever were in the city. Tomorrow I'll meet with David, the angry 14-year-old who reminds Sarah of who I used to be. Next week, I'll attend the high school graduation of another student I've been mentoring. Next month, I'll take a vacation to Ireland, something I've always wanted to do but never made time for. My life is smaller now in some ways, quieter, less complicated. I don't have corporate meetings or business dinners or social obligations. I don't have the stress of maintaining relationships with people who see me only as a source of money or status. But my life is also fuller. Every relationship I have now is based on choice rather than obligation, on genuine affection rather than financial dependency. The kids I mentor choose to trust me. Elena chooses to share her meals with me. Sarah chooses to ask for my help because she believes I have something valuable to offer. I think about Brian and Claire, probably struggling to make rent while raising a daughter they'll have to explain their grandfather's absence to someday. I wonder what story they'll tell her, whether they'll paint me as the villain who abandoned them, or whether they'll eventually understand that I simply stopped enabling their dysfunction. Maybe someday, when their daughter is older, she'll seek me out on her own. Maybe she'll want to know about the grandfather who chose principle over comfort, who walked away from his only child rather than accept disrespect. Maybe she'll understand that love without respect isn't really love at all. Or maybe she won't. Maybe she'll grow up believing her parents' version of events, never knowing that there was a grandfather who would have loved her unconditionally if given the chance. Either way, I'm at peace with my choice. The stars shine down on my quiet mountain town, on the house I chose rather than inherited, on the life I built from the ashes of the one I thought I wanted. I'm 58 years old, and for the first time in decades, I'm exactly where I want to be. Brian was wrong about one thing. I won't die alone. I'll die surrounded by the family I chose, the people who see me as valuable for who I am rather than what I can provide. I'll die knowing that I helped kids like Miguel achieve their dreams, that I supported families like the Rodriguezes through difficult times, that I made a difference in ways that matter. Most importantly, I'll die knowing that I finally learned the difference between being loved and being used, between family and blood relations, between respect earned and respect demanded. Some lessons come late in life, but they're no less valuable for their timing. And some freedom, like mine, is worth any price you have to pay for it.